Alright, in this video we're going to look at transversal and parallel lines. On the very first page you have the definitions, which you should be familiar with, but there are a lot to remember. So always make sure you've got these definitions to refer back to. They are on your glossary sheet, but you've also been given a copy of this, which you can add either into your display folder or stick into your notebook. Now, just quickly with these definitions, transversal is any line that crosses two or more lines. So most of the examples we're going to look at, the transversal line crosses parallel lines. So you can see here, the transversal line is here, and then you've got two parallel lines. Where this one here it's crossing two lines, but these lines aren't parallel. It can be either situation. And in each example here, you've got one example where the lines aren't parallel and one example where they are parallel. And I'll just quickly talk through each one, and then I'll actually show you a widget that you can refer to whenever you want to. So corresponding angles basically are in corresponding positions. So if you think of the transversal line, the corresponding position is this one here is on the upper right corner of the, so it's on above the transversal line on the right side of this line, and this one is also in the same spot. It's just on the other line, on the corresponding line. Now these two angles here, see how this is a red dot and this is a cross? It just means that those angles are not the same. Whereas in this example, because the lines are parallel, these two angles are the same. Now alternate on opposite sides of the transversal and inside the other line. Okay, so we've got to be in between the two lines, and it's just on the other side of the transversal line. So here's our transversal line. Here's one angle, here's the other. And remember, they're not the same because the lines aren't parallel. But when your lines are parallel, and you can see this by the red dot indicating that those two angles are actually the same. So alternate angles when you're dealing with parallel lines are the same. And this might actually be a good thing to annotate on your sheet, is to say that these two angles are the same and these two angles are the same. Now the third one, co-interior, I think are the easiest ones to recognize because they're right next to each other. If you can think about, maybe this being a room, these are on the same wall. Okay, so co-interior on the same wall, and co-interior angles are not the same. So whether they're not parallel or they are parallel, they are not the same. But the two angles are actually supplementary angles. They do add up to 180. So you might actually want to just put a little note on the side here that when they're parallel, the two co-interior angles actually add up to 180 degrees. They're supplementary angles. All right, let's just go down. Okay, so here's just a bit more information. You can see here what I've basically told you about the angles. Okay, so when they're equal, and the co-interior that they add up to 180 degrees. Now on your textbook, so we're looking at 2D. If you go to the widget and look at parallel line angles, I'm going to scroll down. You can actually just see a visual of these angles working. So even though we've got diagrams here, actually seeing how they work can be helpful. Okay, so here are parallel lines, corresponding angles. So if you press on that, you can actually see how they're the same. Okay, so it's going to go through every corresponding angle. And I think there's one more. And then the finish diagram is actually quite useful because you can see which ones are the same. So something like this would be good to put into your bound reference. Okay, so if you are watching this video now, I would actually encourage you to take a screenshot of it or copy it into your bound reference. So that was for corresponding. Let's look at alternate angles. We're only looking at parallel lines for now, so I won't do the parallel. So you can see here it's just proving how they're the same. Okay, so these alternate angles in blue are the same and the orange alternate angles are the same. And then lastly, co-interior. Okay, so it's just showing how they add up to 180. Okay, so very useful to have in your notes. All right, let's go back to the sheet. So in this sheet, you are basically, you've done one where we looked at angles at a point. This time we're looking at transversal and parallel lines. So it's kind of similar, and you would have seen this a similar table in the last worksheet. But we're just going to think now about corresponding, alternate, co-interior, and vertically opposite are also listed here. Okay, so the first one, it might be a good idea to have the definitions with you until you get used to them, but the first one is actually corresponding. Okay, so I might just leave it, I'm not going to write the whole thing because it's not all going to fit. Okay, so A is equal to 130. So remember when we're dealing with parallel lines that these angles are the same. If you look at them, they do look the same. Okay, so this next one is also corresponding. Okay, so A is equal to 70. Okay, the next one is not corresponding because if it was corresponding it would be here. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that. Oops. And it is alternate. Okay, so remember alternate angles with parallel lines are the same. Okay, so it's 110 degrees. Try to get into the habit of writing the degree sign. If you forget, you won't be punished for it, I guess. Okay, so for the next few, I want you to have a look at it. So this one here and this one here, they look both corresponding. This one here, okay, so we've done these ones before. That's a vertically opposite, and then we have another vertically opposite. Okay, the next two are co-interior. So remember, so I might do this one for you, and then you can do the following one. So co-interior. So remember the two angles, when you add them together, equal 180 degrees. Okay, so they're supplementary angles. Now to find what value A is, what we do is we take away 115 from 80. So A is equal to, what is that, 65 degrees. Okay, so this one's also co-interior. I'm not going to do that one for you. You can do it because it's pretty similar to the previous one. We were just working with a different angle. Okay, moving along. Okay, so we've got corresponding there, corresponding, vertically opposite, another co-interior. What do you think this one might be? That is alternate. Okay, and then we're coming towards the extension. So I've put this in the extension because you can see you've now got 3 unknowns, not just one. So sometimes problems require you to actually work out one angle in order to work out the others. So often you can be given just one angle, and you can actually calculate many more just from having that. So the very first one, I can see the parallel lines. Here we have 70 degrees. Okay, so I know that A is a corresponding angle. So I'm just going to write here, A is corresponding. It's terrible handwriting. Okay, so A is corresponding, B is alternate, and then C is co-interior. Okay, so first of all, corresponding angles with parallel lines are the same. So A is 70 degrees B, alternate angles are also the same. So it's also 70 degrees. And then for C, they have to add up to 180. So C plus 70 equals 180. So that means C is equal to 110 degrees. All right, I'm just going to clear that. All right, let's go through the next one. So I can see, let's just do it in order. So A is, I want you to think about it, B is, and C is. So you should really by now know what A is. So here's 120, here's A, it's corresponding. Okay, B is vertically opposite. So I'm not going to write the whole word because I don't have enough space. Now to work out C, C is neither corresponding, alternate or co-interior to 120, but you can actually work out C using the other angles. So I know C is supplementary to A. C is also co-interior to B. So you can use either one if you like. So I'm just going to say C is co-interior to B. And you'd get the same answer if you said C is supplementary to A. Okay, so let's work them all out. So A, if they're corresponding parallel lines, the angle's the same. Vertically opposite, okay, so vertically opposite angles are also the same. And then C, co-interior, they have to add up to 180. So you can either do supplementary, which also has to add up to 180. So C plus, 120 equals 180. So that means C has to equal 60 degrees. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Whoops, it's really hard to scroll. Okay, whoop. Okay, so this one here, I'm not going to do it all for you because I think it's good for you to actually have some practice on your own. So looking at this example here, okay, I will first of all say A is supplementary to 82 degrees, B is vertically opposite, C is corresponding, and then you can say D is vertically opposite to C. Okay, so there's many ways you can find out these angles. You could also say D is corresponding to B. For this one here, okay, so this might be a little bit trickier. I can see that if we have, I might just get my pen, sorry. If we have 90-degree angle here, that must mean that this is also 90 degrees. And if that is 90 degrees, that means that this transversal line is perpendicular to those parallel lines. So I might just actually write that here because you might like to write it somewhere on your page. So the transversal line is perpendicular. So instead of writing perpendicular, you can use that symbol. Okay, so that means perpendicular is perpendicular to the parallel lines, and the symbol we use for parallel lines is that. So for this one, they're all right angles. They're all 90 degrees. So let's just have a look here because I've actually drawn over the top. Now, the reason I knew that we had a 90-degree angle is this square here. So a square always indicates a right angle. Now the reason why these are not squares is because we don't know what the angle is. So we can't leave it as a square. It's basically saying there is an angle here, but we don't know what it is, so we can't say it's a right angle, but we do know because the transversal line is perpendicular that they are all 90 degrees. All right, let's move on to the next one. So A is co-interior, B is alternate or supplementary to A, and then C is supplementary to B. Okay, so if you need to go back and have a look at those definitions, then go back. And the last one, which we just need to scroll down to see. Okay, so this time, because there's so many ways you could approach these questions. Okay, so we don't have anything that is corresponding, alternate, or co-interior to the 119 degrees. But what I can say is we have this angle here is vertically opposite. Okay, so I might just say that is also 119 degrees. It's vertically opposite. So that means for A plus 119 gives you 180. So that'll help you calculate A because those two angles are co-interior. And then B plus A equals 180. So once you've found A here, I'm not going to find it for you. You can then put A in here to work out what B is. Okay, so a little bit of work to do on your own. But well done, work through the sheet, and if you need any help, please ask.